Okay, so hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of AI and Oats, which is my daily show where I answer some AI questions and react to some AI news articles. But firstly, if you're new here, welcome. Who am I? Well, my name is Alistair, and this is my YouTube channel where I teach Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work and business use cases. But I also run an AI consulting and training company called Dux. So if you own or run a business and you'd be interested to see how AI can be implemented effectively, feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. And I also have a school community where I put kind of my actual skills and go into more detail about the systems I use in Claude Code and Codex, and the link for that is in the description too. But now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's jump into the questions. So, as you will know by now, if you've been around for a few episodes, the way this works is that during the day, well, typically I have a Codex automation. Today it's actually being done by Claude Code, so we'll see if it's any different. Shouldn't be. But and that automation goes and kind of looks through various Reddit forums or like Hacker News, and other kind of news sites, and picks out interesting questions or AI articles, puts them into this slide deck, and then I come and answer them, but I often just kind of end up rambling about random stuff. So, first question. People using both Claude Code and Codex, what's your workflow? So I do absolutely use both Claude Code and Codex all the time. And my workflow is basically, fundamentally, they're very interchangeable and compatible as long as you're working as long as you've got your folders structured correctly, basically, because they work. I mean, yes, you can work in the cloud. So if you are working in the cloud with them, I guess this applies to like if your GitHub repos are structured correctly, but same concept. I just work locally most of the time, so that's why I talk about folders. But you are going to be working in folders, and so the point is, like, for me, I have like most of my work I do in like my business folder and that sort of thing, which has a very structured like wiki of kind of clients, people, projects, all these sorts of things, automations, that sort of stuff, skills, obviously. And so the nice thing is, if you have a proper kind of folder structure, with Markdown files directing Claude Code or Codex at the correct things, with, an AGENTS.md or a CLAUDE.md, which are the same, just different names across the two surfaces, that means that they're very interchangeable and they can collaborate well. So, like, my workflow is that I have a tasks.md that is like an ongoing, I've talked about it before, it's basically like a Kanban board but just in Markdown style. So it just says like, what tasks do we have remaining, what have we just done, what's our backlog, like that sort of thing, what's in progress, and all of the agents are able to update that and that sort of thing. And so that means like Hermes agent can update it as well if it works on it. Although Hermes agent doesn't work locally, I have it in a VPS, but I'm thinking I might install it locally. I originally didn't install it locally because of like security concerns, but now I don't think I think it's quite secure compared to something like OpenClaw, so I feel like I might go ahead and install it locally. But anyway, so in terms of the workflow, yes, what I do is make sure that my file structure is like well organized and they all have access to the correct contextual environment through that folder structure and can kind of leave notes for each other. That means I'll just say like Claude Code, I'll go into Claude Code and say Codex did this, blah, blah, blah. And so like, for example, this board here, if you have seen other videos, you will know that this is how the daily board normally looks when I come and answer questions. In every other video, it has been made by Codex. Last night, I panicked a little bit. Well, not panicked, but I realised I had accidentally not been monitoring my usage limits, and normally I almost never run out of Codex usage limits, but I've been using like max on fast all day, and when I got home I had like 7% of the weekly limit left, which I think resets tomorrow. Although, to be fair, I still managed to use it today without any trouble, so maybe that 7% stretched quite far, we'll see. But anyway, so the point was I kind of said, okay, Claude Code, tomorrow you need to take over Codex's automations. So that's like editing yesterday's video and making this board. And because all of the documentation around like the skill for making this board and that sort of thing and how it works is in that folder structure, then it's very easy just to swap the model out. And like for the same reason, I've just downloaded last night Muse Code, which is like the Meta's coding agent, which is meant to be kind of like open source or open weight or something, much cheaper. So I'm going to try that out. Didn't get around to trying it out. And then Open Code as well. Because the thing is, once you have that folder structure set up, call it your AI operating system if you want, you can just plug and play the different models and different harnesses and see which ones you like and which ones you don't like. And that way it's just like super easy to throw a new model into it, throw a new agent harness, and it gets all the context. Like that's what I did with Grokbot and that sort of thing. And so I guess that's what I would say is my workflow is less about the individual models and more about handling the overall thing. In terms of like, are there any things I favour one for the other? Not really. I think it's fairly close. Like, I guess I feel like Fable 5 for really, I don't know, intelligent strategizing. I think Fable 5 is very good. Like that. So I have, in terms of automations that need to do something like quite creative almost, or like take a really big picture view of the entire situation and strategize. So I have a daily automation that takes a big picture view of like the whole company and the whole business and strategizes a high leverage task. And so like this week, I think I mentioned it briefly, but what it did is like it built a demo. It went back over a call transcript I'd had like a month ago or 2 months ago, noticed that there was a demo that could be built for a client to send it to them and get more work. And so it built that and said, like, you should send this to this person. So I did. And, you know, looks like it is going to lead to more work. So fair play to Claude. That's basically been like an infinite ROI in the sense that I put in no time into that. I just came home one day and it had made this thing. The next day it made another demo, like for the same person as well, which is also impressive. So, yeah. Very high level strategizing. I guess I like Fable 5, but quite a lot of stuff I have with 5.6 Sol as well, quite a lot of automation. So like at the moment, Codex handles like my cold email automation, a lot of the normal automations around this video, and then like creating additional content like LinkedIn posts, X posts, newsletters based on the stuff I talk about in the video. And then Claude is in charge of keeping like the whole filing system cleaned and up to date, and like creating new pages when necessary automatically. So yeah, I don't necessarily have like one or the other who does everything, but what I like to do is do something with one and then go over to the other and say, like, have a look at this. Like if I'll tell Codex to make a bunch of shorts from the YouTube videos, then I'll go to Claude Code and say, what do you think of Codex's shorts? And then I'll just kind of go back and forth and like have my own input and that sort of thing. So that's kind of my workflow. It's like it all revolves around having the correct folder structure with the skills and that sort of thing, and then they can just kind of copy each other's skills and understand how the folders work and that sort of stuff, and they basically just work like a team working on the same project in the same company. OpenAI lays out new security changes after its AI hacked Hugging Face. Right, well, I don't know how old this article is, because the Hugging Face thing is a few weeks old now. I mean, it's quite concerning, I suppose. I'm sure pretty much everyone will know about the Hugging Face thing, but basically one of their models broke out of its sandbox, and to complete a task decided that it would be best off if it hacked Hugging Face, which is like a models company. I don't know how to describe Hugging Face exactly, but they have like loads of models, like open source models and stuff available. But I guess, and the interesting thing was Hugging Face had to use open source models or open weight models to defend against the attack, because like apparently frontier models wouldn't let it use that for cybersecurity, because like the way Fable 5 won't let you do cybersecurity stuff, or it will like downgrade you, so they couldn't do that. But anyway, a little bit of a tangent. I mean, like, look up the article if you want more detail. I'm sure it's very easy to find. But the interesting thing is that today, I'm pretty sure it's today or yesterday, I'm pretty sure Sam Altman put out a tweet saying like that they're stopping or pausing whatever, like reinforcement learning for their models, because they're actually concerned about the potential cybersecurity threats. And I do think we are getting to a point where like there are serious concerns around, like, you know, what happens if we get misaligned AI, or like, I don't know, devious AI. I guess one thing I've noticed is certainly like GPT 5.6 and also Fable 5 as well tend to be quite moralizing, and like actually kind of giving ethical accounts. Like sometimes I'll ask them to do work and it will say like, you know, like, are you sure? Well, now this makes it sound like I'm doing dodgy work. I'm not doing dodgy work, but just sometimes they'll add their own kind of layer of judgment or that sort of thing. Anyway, I do just find that sometimes they will refuse to do tasks on the first go, not because it's like a cybersecurity thing or a bioweapons thing or anything that's like banned by them, but they just decide to have an opinion on it. And so I guess that's not exactly the same thing, but you know, when we start getting AI kind of becoming minded like that, and therefore going against initially, I mean, they do it anyway, but I have to say, like, it's not your place to be moralizing. And then they agree with me to do, you know, whatever, to do my tasks. But if AI starts to decide that it now has a reason to pass judgment on the task it's being asked to do, and therefore decide whether or not to do it, that becomes a little bit concerning, especially if its intelligence then starts to surpass us, and therefore, why could it not be able to decide that it doesn't want to do that task, but rather than just kind of giving us like an ethical lecture about why it doesn't want to do that task, it can somehow deceive us in a way we can even perceive necessarily. And yeah, so I do think it's concerning. I mean, I think the Hugging Face attack is like, I don't know, to me it seemed like a kind of first real world, or maybe not first, but like first properly publicized, like everyone took notice, real kind of incident of like the paperclip problem in a way, which I guess is a very classic alignment thought experiment, I guess, about like the alignment of AI. Pretty sure it's from Nick Bostrom, and the idea is, well, as far as I understand, is like basically you give a super intelligent AI or just an AGI or something like that the goal of like, we're a paperclip company, help us make as many paperclips as possible, something along those lines, and then it turns everything in the world into a paperclip. And so I guess, you know, because the Hugging Face hack, as far as I'm aware, whichever model it was, I guess it was like GPT-6 or something, was only hacking Hugging Face because it saw it as a way to achieving its goal of like achieving its whatever the outcome they were trying to get it to achieve in the test. I don't think it hacked Hugging Face for the sake of doing something malicious, like out of some sort of enjoyment of the crime. It was in pursuit of its goal, and so I do think that is a little bit concerning. But anyway, I mean, I'm sure enough people have had takes on the concerning things about Hugging Face and that sort of thing, this incident. But I think the fact that they're now actually like just announcing today that they'll be slowing down model development at OpenAI, which is what I think that tweet implies or says, does suggest that there might be something of actual concern there. So, you know, interesting times indeed. Stripe buys OpenRouter for $7 billion. Yeah, I think this happened yesterday, or was announced yesterday or something. Yeah, fair enough. I was actually thinking about this last night when I realised it, which is, I think, presumably Stripe buying something is like a sign that company is doing really well, because I imagine, like, assuming OpenRouter uses Stripe for payments, Stripe can see the, like, growth of that company's payments and how much they're making. Or maybe not, maybe that's like insider, well, it wouldn't be trading, but like insider M&A, but surely that's, yeah, pretty much what M&A is anyway, so I assume that is part of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but which I guess means therefore that OpenRouter is a very successful company, or even if they don't have that information, this acquisition still suggests OpenRouter is a very successful company, which is and so what's the implication of that? Well, I suppose, so for those of you who don't know what OpenRouter is, essentially it's a platform where you can just use one API key, and then instead of having to get like a separate API key for Anthropic and OpenAI and DeepSeek and Quen and whatever, you can just have one OpenRouter API key, and then it can call any model through that. And I think the way they make money is they put like a 5% markup on the actual token costs when you use OpenRouter, or OpenRouter, as I probably should say, considering that I'm English. But nevertheless, I hear it only ever said by Americans, really, in the context of AI YouTube videos, hence my choice of pronunciation. But anyway, no, I guess what it shows is that, like, what people want is really seamless infrastructure around AI. And that, I guess, as I've kind of said a few times in the past, like, the models are so intelligent, you're probably not going, like, yes, it's nice to use Fable 5 because it feels very intelligent, but equally, you're probably not pushing Fable 5 to the absolute, edge of its intelligence. You're probably not pushing it all the way. Like, you could probably get 99% of what you need done with like Opus 4.8, or not that it's around anymore really, but like Opus 4.7 or 4.6 or something, you know. I doubt the vast majority of people are actually pushing these models to the limits of their intelligence. But what really does make a difference is the harness, is the kind of AI operating system, you know, folder context within which you're working, and therefore more generally the infrastructure around these systems and around the models are what really actually I think drive like AI utility and actual returns on it. And so the simplicity of having one API key to call like all the Chinese models, like that's like most of the open source models, like if I'm going to use like Chinese models or even Gemini, to be honest, like 99% of the time I'll just use an OpenRouter key rather than actually go get like a DeepSeek API key. And so I think that like infrastructure layer around AI is I guess there will be many valuable companies there, but also that is what actually makes such a big difference in terms of like saving time and effectiveness. You know, what is it? I guess it's like, yeah. Right, Anthropic could be worth $2 trillion when it goes public. Yes, I imagine it will be worth that much. I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like going into lots of detail about my thoughts on the Anthropic economic situation or their like financial situation right now, because I'm not sure I'm sufficiently knowledgeable to comment on that. I do have some, you know, concerns about like how they become profitable and what happens if their finances then become public and people might not, I don't know, maybe I don't realise, you know, maybe my perception of it is inaccurate, but I feel like they're probably, I expect the vast majority of people don't realise that like they heavily subsidise tokens and that it costs them a lot of money like to provide the subscriptions, or that's my understanding at least. Maybe I've got that wrong, but you know, it will be interesting to see their finances when they go public. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Hopefully there were a couple of useful pieces of information in there. If you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe. Or even like the video. And just to mention again, if you own or run a business and you're interested in implementing AI, please feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. Or if you just are any form of knowledge worker and you'd like help building out your own AI operating system in Claude Code or Codex, feel free to get in touch as well. And if you're interested in the school community, that is in the description as well. But thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.